Don't fuck up, don't fuck yourself. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rude Cooking School podcast. I'm your host, John Hauser III, and with me are two amazing women. They are designers, they're cooks, they're bakers, they're entertainers, they're food organizers, they're world travelers, and dare I say it, culinary soulmates? I'm with Mumtaz Mustafa and Laura Klynstra. Damn it, I almost had it. Sorry, Laura. They are the authors of Gather and Graze, an amazing book, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome, ladies. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Sorry about that, Laura. I had the other thing in my head.
The Klyn. A lot of people say Klyn. It's like the German Klein. Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling John, that some people say Klynstra and some Klynstra, and I'm like, have I been saying it wrong my whole life? What kind of culinary soulmates would we be?
In my head, it was Klynstra, but then I wasn't sure, and then it screwed me up when I was rereading it because my handwriting is fucking terrible. But thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to start it like this. Like, I get pitched, different cookbooks and stuff a lot. And a lot of them are really weird. Like, 50 hamsters to make your wellness brain great, or the vinegar diet, make your foot really strong, that kind of stuff. And I was, from the picture of the cover of your book, at first I was like, is this just like a charcuterie book? Like, that's interesting, but I don't know how you can get like a lot out of a charcuterie book. But I was like, okay, I'll take a look at like, just some of the pictures. And I was like, oh shit, this is way different than what I thought it was. And then I actually got the book.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I actually have the book. And it's incredible, guys. Like, this is a fucking feat. Like, it covers so much.
That's awesome. That's the first time anybody's called it a fucking feat.
Okay, so I understand, like, by day, I'm a designer as well. And
oh, wow. What kind of design?
Oh, I designed gift bags and gift boxes, believe it or not.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like a zillion years.
Wow.
I'm also a food photographer and food writer, written for various places, whatever. But like, going through it, I'm like, oh wow, the pictures are really great. The food is really appetizing. The photos that are not food, that are like travel log photos, are fucking really cool. And then I'm like, you know what? Let me look at the beginning of this damn book. And sure enough, you guys did this whole book yourselves.
We did. We literally started from scratch every single thing was done by the two of us. And that's why it was, a fucking feat, as you said. We don't know how we came out of it alive.
I mean, was that like the pitch? You're like, hey, look, we'll just do everything. Don't worry about it.
Well, we do other people's books. And so one time, Mumtaz and I were saying, well, why are we always doing other people's books? Why don't we do our own book?
That's how it happened. Yeah, basically. And Laura moved to Michigan, so it was an excuse to hang out and just kind of be nerdy and do crazy stuff together and feel like we're doing work, but we were actually having a lot of fun. And Laura did, she's been doing photography like since the first, like literally 22 years ago when I first met her. We used to go to the Cloisters and I used to pose for her for book covers. And, she's been doing this forever. And then she kind of pivoted towards food when she did her mom's cookbook and then her own cookbook. So this was like the perfect kind of project for us to do together.
I mean, it's definitely like, it feels like you're not just trying to do this to, like, a lot, as you're in the business. So like a lot of cookbooks are just like money grabs and shit, like where you can feel just the soullessness of this. Like, this seems like a really good collaboration, and like, it's really thoughtful.
Like, every country we spent a lot of time researching, either being there. Mumtaz has traveled more than I have, and she's been to a lot of the countries in the book, but just doing a lot of research and just from our friends and all of the great restaurants in New York and there's just so much to pull from. I know it's definitely not a money grab. It was very much from our heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they say whenever, if you want to make a friend, go and have a meal with them. And that kind of just makes them, and for us, that was kind of the idea behind so many of these chapters, and just we trying to create these or recreate these in our kitchens. So
was there like a Bourdain quote somewhere in here? Did I catch one of those?
There was a Bourdain, big fans.
If you look at the very beginning, just before the actual book starts, between the front matter and the first chapter, so just before the Asian, I can't remember the page number.
Gotcha.
There's a photo spread, and that's where there's actually two Bourdain quotes, I think, but the big one is there with that photo spread with all the travel photos. You can see Pakistan on that photo. Yeah, and that the quote is in a photograph that Mumtaz took in Portugal. That archway is such a pretty. Yeah.
And the travel photos are you, right, Mumtaz?
They're both of us.
Okay, yeah. They're great. Like, they're really pretty. They're really nice. Yeah, you can't see it, but I was lucky enough to get a big signed poster of Bourdain.
Oh, wow.
Nice. When he was doing No Reservations. This was like, it was right before my kid was born. So it was like 14 years ago almost. Wow. So yeah, it's the most lucky I've ever been in my life. I woke up early on a Saturday morning, which back then was pretty hard because I'd probably gone out to the bar before the night before. I got up early to try to get Momofuku Co tickets because we were going to New York the next week because I'm in Baltimore. I'm in Baltimore. So I wound up signing up for the stupid poster and winning it, and then also getting Momofuku Co tickets. It's like all in one morning, all in the span of 30 minutes.
That is such a lucky day. At HarperCollins, we published him under Echo imprint. And one time he actually came to the office and I was stalking him. I was literally like, I want to go up to him. And eventually I actually did. And I told him to come to Pakistan. And he said, then I was referring to him as my husband the whole day because I was obsessed with him and in love with him. And then all my colleagues were like, your husband was here. And I told him to come to Pakistan. And he said, actually I would love to, but they just wouldn't clear it because of insurance, because it's not a very safe place. And the production was like, absolutely not,
Wow.
But that would have been so cool.
Yeah, I've been lucky to talk to a few people through this podcast. Like, there's a chef. He worked in Baltimore briefly, and there's a chef that used to work with him who's close to me that I got to interview, and she was like, "Dude, he's just Tony. Like, he's a fucking back then he was just a madman. Like,
right.
It's really,
But that's what everyone loves about him.
Right. When the mics go off, she's like, "I'll tell you the real story." I've heard some shit about Tony. It's pretty funny, but getting back to the book, like going through it. Okay, so Bourdain's a great kickoff for this because this is sort of like an episode of one of his shows, chapter by chapter, right? Like you're kind of giving sort of like a good overview, like you're hitting main points of cuisines and countries and what really sort of distills down to what is not the most popular, but probably the most fun to sit with people and eat together.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. We didn't want to, and I'm going to stop talking, Laura, so you can talk. But one of the things is we're not like experts in any of these foods, and we don't want to appropriate any of them. But what we did want to do is pick our top of the pops, pick the ones that we really loved or we enjoyed or we thought would be really interesting to develop, and especially around the theme of creating these grazing boards and creating bite-sized versions of these foods to kind of, encourage a gathering and get people together. And we wanted to kind of do a variety. I mean, Laura did all the desserts and I did most of the savory. There's some savory from Laura. But Laura, I'm going to let you speak too now.
Yeah. So I did most of the pretty much all of the baking. Maybe not all of it, but most of it. So even if it was a savory bake, I did. But Mumtaz is just more of an expert at cooking, and I'm more of an expert at baking. And that's one of the things that we think is unique for us as a team. Is quite often people are better at one than the other. So if you get a cookbook from one author author, it's probably going to be mostly cooking or it's going to be mostly baking. This one has got a pretty even set of, it's probably maybe a little bit more cooking than baking, but it's pretty evenly divided. It's got a lot of desserts. It has sauces and all kinds of things. And going back to what you were saying about it not just being a charcuterie board book, there's the whole table spreads. Some of them are more like buffet style.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not just
feasts,
like small bites. But yeah, we kind of started with the concept of small bites and then it just kind of grew. Like like for instance, the Mexican table is more of it's build your own taco. It's not little small bites. It's a build your own taco board. But
yeah, you got like whole flank steaks in that motherfucker. By the end of it, you're like, yeah,
but we're just gonna put it all in. Right?
Yeah,
that was
no,
one
it's
of my
great.
last shoots.
Yeah, it's just basically like, everything that would be great at a party. And how to make it all look beautiful on your table. And that's why we call them tablescapes instead of just boards.
Yeah, it's like you guys are like the Wonder Twins. Like Wonder Twin powers activate. Like shape of sesame shrimp toast, form of mini scallion pancakes. Like, you know, each one of you are probably doing one or the other, you know. But how like, okay, when you guys were together, like when you were both in New York centralized, is this how you entertained? Like sort of like big spread like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, Laura used to have these parties when we used to work together at HarperCollins. That's how we began to cook together. She used to have these potlucks and such. I mean, we had just began that journey together. So we did, we all cooked something and we would try and make it look as pretty as possible. And then when I entertain here in New York, I always have these big spreads. It's just become part of my DNA. It's what my mom did and what my grandmother did. So yeah, it's usually all my friends are like, are you going to make one thing or 20 things? I'm like, I'll make two, and it's usually 15. So
yeah, and we would sometimes like to do an international theme so that we would have dishes from different parts of the world. And you could do that with this book too. Instead of just doing one of the places, you could pick a recipe from multiple chapters and do an international theme, which would be super fun.
My idea going through this book in the last couple weeks was this is a perfect book to buy because in 2 weeks the Olympics are popping up. This is a perfect way to have a fucking like badass Olympics party and just cook, just send it out to your friends. Mm-hmm. You're cooking this, I'm cooking this. Let's get together, and it's like the Olympics of cooking to like watch the opening ceremonies.
Oh my God, I love that. In fact, I was telling Laura that some of my friends in New York who at our launch, it's become this thing now. They're hosting these Gather and Graze parties and they're picking different recipes and it's a surprise. And then everyone just shows up at these potlucks. And my mom heard us talk about it on one of our TV segments and she got really excited. And she's like, when you're in Houston next, we're going to do this with my friends. And I think that's such a fun thing because there's such a variety that, it'll be fun to kind of, to your point, kind of create this Olympic situation of cooking, and then just getting people together.
Yeah, we were also thinking it would be an awesome Friendsgiving. Instead of your traditional turkey, do it for because when I was in the New York area, we like to do Friendsgiving because we couldn't always go home to get together with our families. So then we would get together with our friends, and you don't have to do a turkey. You could do
right.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. We still do Friendsgivings like every other year, even though, a bunch of us have kids and stuff because you're so wiped out from the family stuff. You're like, I just want to be with my people and just be silly.
Yeah, for me, every year for the last 24 years in New York, it's been a Friendsgiving because, but it's lovely. I mean, I love that idea.
But it's a really good idea. So, okay. Was the idea always to have this sort of like spread, like, okay, I don't know how to frame this up because there's so like you're covering 20 like countries, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, technically it's not 20 different countries because there's 3 within the United States. We do New York City brunch,
20 chapters.
Yep.
So was it always to try to cover this much, or did the snowball just start going down the hill and you're like, let's do it?
Yeah, the snowball went down. When we first laid it out, it was over 500 pages. And the publisher was like, nope.
Wow.
It's at 424, I think, right now.
I got $3.95 at the acknowledgements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I guess it's with the front matter has the Roman numerals.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So it's 424, I believe. And that includes the index.
You would know better than me. Yeah.
And we had to end up cutting. We cut 100 pages. We had a whole Scandinavian section for Smorgasbord.
Wow.
Which we cut. We wanted to do a New Orleans chapter. And then within each section, we had to cut recipes. So
I bet.
we had more recipes than that.
I mean, we want to keep doing it. So we just, it's something that we started, but if you feel like if we were to do a second, third, fourth book, there's so much more to cover because let's say for Pakistan, I picked up the Pakistani street food, but there's so many parts of the country and so many different variations. So, and we have, so it just kind of, it's a fun project because there's so much that one can kind of learn about and dwell into.
Well, the way this is like laid out is the way that I like to eat. Like, I don't like to have one big ass thing and then just a couple little things. Like, I like to pick. I like to eat different things to keep my palate like awake and interested instead of just like, all right, time to put food in mouth. You know, like I remember when, tapas got really big years ago. Like I was like, holy shit, this is the greatest way to eat, or you go to dim sum, you're like, oh my God, this is the greatest way to eat,
I love that.
It's so much fun to eat that way. And for people listening at home, like, don't be intimidated by the breadth of this because it's sort of laser pinpointed focused on just enough to get, and I'm sure as you would say, you wouldn't have to cook everything from each place just for one party. You pick 4 and go for it, right? Or everybody picks 2 and then you all come together.
Right. I love
that.
Right.
Is that your idea behind this?
Yeah. Or you get together with your friend and get together in the kitchen and you work on it together. Or you can do things in advance. There's a lot of sauces that can be done in advance. Or you can purchase some of the items if you wanted to do the whole thing. You don't have to make everything homemade. When we started this book, we thought, oh, this will be easy. So if you've seen other charcuterie board books, they have like 1 or 2 recipes and then everything else on the board is purchased.
Right.
And we kind of started thinking, oh, that's what we're going to do. I'm like, no. We're going to have homemade sauces. Everything is going to be homemade. And it just, like you said, snowballed.
Yeah. I'm like the maniac that would be like, okay, well, how about I just make all of the charcuterie? Like I can make duck prosciutto. Why not? Right.
Right. Wow. That would be insane.
Oh, duck prosciutto is super easy. Just,
you can raise your ducks and slaughter them. And
well, I live in the city. I don't know about that. I think my neighbors would have a problem with it. But seriously, like duck prosciutto is super easy. Just take duck breast and throw it in salt and sugar and whatever. I will say there are a few, like going through this, there are certain things that like I sort of take for granted that could be bought that you do put in there. Like, I've never made shrimp toast before. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I could make that because I order it a lot when we order out, and it's super easy. But I bet you I bet you it's a million times better than what you get.
Yeah, 100%. And there's something about eating it fresh. Like if you order it as opposed to like literally fresh, hot out of the fryer, it's just delicious, and it just.
And pita is another thing that people probably don't think, to make themselves. And it's not as hard as you would think either.
Yeah, pita's easy. Like pita's one of those things that's like a great, like when people don't think they can bake, it's like, okay, start here. You kind of can't fuck it up.
And then watching it puff is just like, it's so satisfying.
It's like magic, right? It's like one of those things. It's one of those tricks that hooks, like I use that to hook people into cooking. You give them those like really satisfying, recipes that, there's a thing. Yeah. There's like a little trick or a little thing that they know that they did it right. And you see them smile and you're like, gotcha. Love that kind of stuff. But like, okay, harissa, like I've never made harissa and I know that it's probably relatively easy. And then I look at the recipe and I'm like, oh yeah, Like, oh, by the way, everyone, the recipes are really well written. They're explained wonderfully. Like, it's not complicated. And there are, it doesn't overwhelm you with the amount of ingredients or steps, and some things are easier than others, but even some of the more complicated things are broken down to where you can do it pretty easily. And congrats to you guys for writing it that way.
Yeah. The other thing that we did that is we photographed everything.
Right.
So you're not going to find a recipe in there that doesn't have a photograph. You're not going to have to look at that and wonder, what does that even look like? It's photographed on the chapter opener with the whole spread, and then each one has an individual photo. If we couldn't do a full page, we added it to the bottom of the recipe. And that's one of the benefits of being a photographer and designers and food stylists, so we could do all of that. We didn't have to leave anything out.
It's a really smart way to do it, because you got the splash page and you got everything there, and it's like, oh, I want my table to look like this. And then, like you said, as you're going through, it's like, oh, well, here's the harissa, or here's the lamb shank, or the chicken tangine, which, man, that chicken tangine looks good. But
speaking of the chicken tangine, I was in Morocco, and I went to a farm that was owned by 3 generations, and we had an entire day of cooking tagines, and we did every single kind of tagine. By the end, the rest of my time in Morocco, I'm like, I want Italian food, because we had so much tagine time, but we learned every possible kind of tagine, and it was so much fun. And it's interesting when you mentioned the harissa, because I've had so many different types of harissa, whether it's in Morocco, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Pakistan, whether it's in various parts of, the Middle East. And like this one, it resonated with me, and I tried different flavors, and that's the kind of harissa I would like. But, so it's interesting how each recipe might not exactly feel like the one you're used to, but it is a version of it. So that's the exciting part. I love,
Okay. Let me go back to the pictures for 1 second. So I'm sitting here going through this book for the last, I've had this book now for 2 weeks, but like last night, I'm really sort of writing the notes and, flagging pages and stuff. And I'm showing my son, I'm like, what do you think about this? And he's like, oh my God, I want that, but the one thing that I was like, you would love this, right? And he was like, I don't know. It's the chocolate salami. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? It's a giant truffle. And he's like, I don't know.
He's is ridiculously delicious. I cannot even.
That's what I'm saying.
Once you start,
it's so easy too.
You cannot stop. Oh my God,
it's really easy.
You have to make it. Please, can you make it for him, John, and then tell us what he thinks?
I'm planning on it, because when I make chocolate truffles, it's basically this, but the pistachios are on the outside. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, and he's like, I don't know. It just kind of looks too much like meat. I'm like, you don't give a shit.
That's the idea.
If it had charcuterie board. Dude, if it had salami in it, he would be like, all right, fine, chocolate and salami, let's fucking do this. Like,
all right.
Salty sweet.
Yeah, the picture's so convincing. Like, it's a really cool picture, like the way that it's tied and like everything. It's really fun. But,
that powdered sugar on the outside just makes it look like the outside of a salami. It's so funny.
The Brazilian truffles, that's what made his head explode, because there's my mother used to work for a chocolatier that's local called Rebs, RHEBS, and they do their truffles. And like, my mother worked there for like 20 years, but before that, growing up, the truffles with the chocolate sprinkles on the outside, those are the kind of truffles that I've grown up with, and now that he's grown up with. And I showed him the picture, and then there's the coconut ones. What are the ones with the little balls?
Oh, that's just a type of sprinkle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I showed him that, and he was just like, all right, we're going to do that, right? We're going to learn to make these, because if we can make them, we never have to go back to that place. And I'm like, well,
they're pretty easy. They're pretty easy, actually. Yeah. It's not a lot of ingredients. It's in South America, they love and Central America too, they love their sweetened condensed milk. And that's kind of the main ingredient in that one.
That's awesome. Okay. So getting back to the traveling, did you travel for this, or did this come out of the traveling? Like, what came first?
Well, in my case, it was a combination of the two. I've
Okay.
spent a lot of time in Spain and in Italy, and I was forever because I've always been into food. Even in art school, my degree project was a restaurant. I designed everything, did all the designing of the menus, and I, created all the design of it. But then I also made all the food, and I'm like, if they give me an F for design, they're going to give me an A for the cooking. So I like kind of was forever always. I would come to New York from Rhode Island just to feel inspired. So that journey began a long time ago with the travel, but the recent ones like Portugal, the 2 months I spent there, and I took a bunch of classes, and Morocco was especially for the book. So yeah, it varied.
And
it was always
we did shoot one board in another country, and that was
Oh, wow.
The tropical spread was shot in Guatemala.
Oh,
So
shit! Wow, that's cool.
all of those flowers in there were from. We have my family and I have a house down there as a vacation house, and so all of those flowers were picked from the property, and that was a fun. That spread was actually then consumed by family members for a quinceañera.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was so much fun. We had a great time. Everyone got wasted, and then all the food finished.
See, that's the best right there. Right?
Yeah, and everybody had to go back. Jorge had to go get more alcohol.
Little bit of work, little bit of play, little bit of work.
Yeah.
Like doing the spreads and stuff where like the people around you like, so when are you going to make another one of those spreads so we can just help take out the extra food after you're done shooting it? Like with all the tacos and stuff?
Yeah, we did most of it in Laura's kitchen in Michigan. She has this gorgeous kitchen. She renovated it, so it is most stunning light. So we did like 3 or 4 chapters in New York in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, balcony and downstairs. But the rest was then, Laura has a large family. There are a lot of people. So that there was no trouble with that food finishing, right, Laura?
No, it was pretty much eaten. Yeah.
My so I'm just constantly going through this book, and I'm just reminded of like conversations I've had with my wife and kid. My wife, the one thing she wants me to make out of this are the Stroop waffles.
Oh, Laura.
Also not as hard as I was imagining. Really not. You do have to have the waffle iron.
You gotta have the waffle
cone.
Yeah.
Waffle cone. Not it doesn't work with a regular waffle maker. It has to be the waffle cone. And it's again the simple ingredients, but eating that fresh versus the one from a packet.
Right. And then the caramel is the key to that, right?
Yeah. Having homemade caramel is good too.
Well, see, we don't eat a lot of sweets, but I bake a lot. But I just like maybe once or twice a year while I like, besides cookies and stuff, I'll make somebody a cake if they want it or something. But I don't make a lot of sweet stuff. And my wife was like, yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. And I'm like, all right. Oh, you're going to give me an excuse to buy another kitchen gadget? Okay, fine.
And then you can also make waffle cones.
Right. And then, yeah, of course. And then I'll make ice cream to go with the thing.
Yeah, homemade ice cream would be amazing.
Homemade ice cream's the best. Are there places that you didn't get to add that you said a couple, but like, are there places that you wanted that you just like didn't even, you're just like, I want to do this, but let's not do it. We'll hold off.
I mean, there were so many, we just couldn't, we just tried to, we made lists and lists and lists, and we would cut down and narrow down. And Laura was very good with she was like, okay, let's represent something from each part of the world somehow. And that's what we did. But if we could, this book would have never ended. There would have been endless infinity pages. So
you're going to have to work on the name of the second book. It can't be 2 G's. It's got to be alliterative something else now, right?
Our friend cool, Irvin wanted us to do one called what was it? Gather and Dazed, where you smoke weed with it. He said. I don't think we're going to do that, but that was an Irvin thing. So
that's too good. Yeah. Then the food tastes even better.
Smoke and smorgasbord.
Yeah. And get the munchies.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like SNS, but to come up with that's a good idea, John. We should think of that. if we do end up.
But I like the alliterative name of it, just Gather and Graze. Like, it's a really good name. I will say, so I haven't traveled a ton, but like, you know, I've been to a few of these countries and stuff, and like the Spanish menu is really sort of like man, like we make pan con tomate here, like almost Christ at least once, twice a month here, especially during the summer when I'm doing like anything on the grill, because pan con tomate is such a really good foil for, you know, sort of heavier meat things.
Right.
And yeah.
And I love that they serve that. I mean, that's at every single bar. Like, you get a glass of wine and they give you the pan con tomate, and it's lovely, and it's just so satisfying.
Who can we buy off in the US government that they can pass a law where that just becomes the norm here? Because it literally is the best way to eat ever.
It's interesting. And, you know, in like Florence, in Italy, they do the same with wine. At wine bars, they have these little spots, and they give you bruschetta, and it's with tomato bruschetta. And I'm like, every part of the world has their little version of bread and some form of a flavoring on it. And it really, you don't get a hangover the next day, which is really interesting. It's also the fact that the wine has no sulfates or preservatives, right? Because it's local. But yeah.
And every bottle's like €3. Good, delicious bottles.
Literally. Yeah. Literally. Never been so delicious before. Kind of.
€1. Yeah. Can I get like, you know, half a pound of the greatest jamon ever, and then that's only like €5. Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah,
literally $50 worth of pelota jamon. Let me see. Okay, so how long has this been? How long has this book been out now?
Released the beginning of June. So.
Okay, so it hasn't been out that long. That's awesome.
No, not that long yet.
And you've gotten good feedback from people for this, or?
Oh yeah, everybody loves it that's seen it. And I think maybe that's one of the tricks too, is if you see that on Amazon, you can't really get an idea of like how big the book is, for one thing.
Right.
It's a brick, and it's printed on really nice paper. It's just a beautiful thing to have.
It is I'm a sucker, and I'm a sucker for a really well-made cookbook, and I'm disappointed a lot when I get the cookbook, or if I'm browsing through cookbooks and I'm just like, oh man, like even for like just low-level recipes, I at least want a finished, like I want to see what it's going to look like. Even though I know what it's going to look like, I've gone to culinary school, I've been in the business for 20 years, I still want to see it, right? And almost everything in here has that. And I'm like, yes, it's satisfying. You get to see something to compare it to, or how to serve it.
Exactly. That means so much to us, especially coming from you as a designer and as a chef. And, you know, like for us, we did have a book launch, and we decided to invite like 200 plus people in New York City. And we actually cooked a bunch of stuff from the book. And people were in love. They loved the food, everything finished. We sold a ton of books. We signed a ton of books. And for me, that really was the moment when people were coming up to us. And it was, I won't speak for Laura, but I think she might agree that it was, for me, I felt like, oh my God, for that minute we've landed. Like, I felt like a celebrity. I felt so proud. People were coming around. And then soon after, you know, the next day the book released, and then it's been on the, you know, #1 best release. It's been, you know, doing quite well in the ratings, goes up and down, and whoever does see it gets really excited about it. So, you know, we are really hopeful, and we're really excited, and, you know, we're gonna keep pushing and hoping that this book makes its way to people's kitchens, and they actually get to see it and enjoy it and use it.
So like another thing that I'm like a sucker for is I love utensils, and like some of the serving spoons and forks you have in here are awesome. Like just old, like sort of vintage antique looking things. And I'm like, yeah, I gotta go look for one of those now. Damn it.
Whenever I fly into Michigan, often Laura, we go thrifting. So we have so many props, and we love to combine old and new. So we
They're
have
like-
a beautiful.
You brought
collection.
some beautiful stuff back from Pakistan too. Like those
Pakistan.
teapots in that shot.
Yeah.
They really make that table. I just that pop of you have a green one and a blue one, I believe, and they just yeah. And also the parathas are wrapped in that newspaper.
That
from
newspaper.
Pakistan.
Yeah, dude.
The local,
Yeah,
we
it's such a
literally
good
took
touch.
That's a
everything.
sweet detail.
It
And
really
a lot of
is.
things from the Portugal section. Like I actually went to these old vintage markets and I bought stuff that was like over 100, 200 years old, hand painted, and so we try to stay as authentic as possible. To Laura, with your Dutch section, you also did the same when we went thrifting.
But it's also
And you got
funky.
stuff from your family.
It's like when I look in my utensil drawer, I do the same thing you guys. Like if I'm somewhere, like there's like a, I think it's called like a tomato serving spoon that you have in here. That's one of those really big round one. And it's got like cuts in it that are basically like little X's or crosses or plus signs, whatever you want to call it.
I think that was from an antique store.
Right. But I have one of those and I just got one, but then it just mix matches with all the other stuff and it looks cool. Like right now I'm looking at the garlic aioli page and there's like the most perfectly patinaed, cool looking old ass spoon. And I'm a sucker for spoons. And I'm just like, that's like the perfect fucking spoon for, patatas bravas.
I love it. Yeah.
It's perfect, but the other thing that's amazing about these older spoons is that they're not reflective. And as a photographer,
yeah, good call.
and you've got your camera mounted above, like it is suspended above the food. And if you have something reflective, you are going to get that camera in the shot.
Last thing you want to do is Photoshop yourself out of the picture. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's they look good. They look better than shiny things, but they are also very functional for photography.
Nice. All right. I'm sure everyone asked you this question, but I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite recipe in the book?
Oh
God, is this putting you on?
Yeah. I
figured this would be the
I think the stroopwafels might be one of my favorites just because it was surprisingly easy compared to what I was expecting. And also because it is from my ancestry. My ancestors are from the Netherlands. And so just to have that tie back was something kind of fun for me.
So what you're saying, it's like one of those bang for your buck recipes where people are like, oh my God, this is so complicated. And you're like, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
it's so hard. You'll never want to do it yourself. It's warm. It's still warm.
And I would say, like, for me, I mean, there's so many. I mean, but one of the ones that I'm particularly proud of is the Khawswe recipe, which is a Burmese-inspired recipe. But in Pakistan, every family and every kitchen has their own version of it. So it's been bastardized in many, many different ways. And I've been trying to create the perfect one that I love. And actually, I'm happy with how it turned out. So
my favorite one that Mumtaz wrote is the potato and chicken cutlets. That was one of our bonding recipes. They're so delicious. They're so amazing.
The potato and chicken cutlets?
Yeah, it's like the first recipe in the Pakistan chapter. They are amazing. And if you make them at a party, don't expect them to last because people love them. Just love them. And you have to have it with the mint cilantro mint chutney. They're so good.
I think this weekend, actually, the thing that I'm going to make besides, because I'm going to try to get my son and his friends together to make the chocolate salami. But I think this weekend I'm going to do the cod fritters and the green beans. Like those look banging. I love a cod fritter.
And,
okay. Well, you'd love Portugal. If you haven't been to Lisbon, every street corner, this is their thing. They're just, the cod fritters are everywhere. They're so good.
So when I was in Spain, I was lucky enough to go to Barcelona and Madrid and any place that had them. Cause I don't know. Have you guys been to Baltimore before?
No.
Okay.
I haven't. Laura, have you?
No, I haven't.
So growing up here, I've lived in Baltimore my whole life. There are things called coddies here that they sell at the corner stores. And it's literally like it's like bodega style where all day it just sits out all day. but it's basically potato and cod mashed together, fried into a puck, and then sits out all day. And when you bought them, or still buy them at the corner stores, they give you a coddy and they give you 2 crackers and a packet of mustard. So like,
oh wow,
that was that was my cod fritter growing up. And then once I started working in restaurants and stuff when I was a kid, and then people would make real cod, like, croquettes and stuff. And you're like, oh God, it can be taken to another level. And then you go to another country and you see how they make, and you're like, like I'm a sucker for a cod cake thing. So
anything. Yeah.
That's one of the threads that seemed to run through a lot of the countries was they all had a version of a croquette.
Or a cutlet. I mean, the same. Hard apple from the Dutch chapter, which is chocolate. I'm still thinking of the chocolate salami, which is one of my favorite recipes from the section from the book, because
with potatoes and Gouda and chives. It's very simple, super simple, but it's so delicious. Yeah.
And it's funny to see how everybody's take on it. It's like similar, but everybody puts a spin on it that just distinguishes it from the other places. It's fucking amazing, right? Like,
it's amazing. We were so excited. We'd learn all these commonalities, whether it would be a wonton, or whether it would be a samosa, or whether it would be the different potato versions of breaded goodness.
But, and also the history too, like how food traveled.
Yeah.
I always thought of churros as being Mexican. I always thought of that, but they're not. They're Spanish.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Spanish. And cilantro isn't even indigenous to Central America or South America. I believe cilantro was brought in over from Europe. So, and tomatoes are not.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and tomatoes are not from Italy. Like food traveled with people, and it influenced their recipes and their cuisine. They're not everything is from where they use it now.
So one of the things I try to do on this show is, I have 3 sort of separate sections of the show that I do. Like, one is the main thing, which is basically like a food history. I take an item and I research the shit out of it and then present it as this is it from the beginning, like BC to basically I'll take it up to like the 1950s to where everything started getting canning, right? So like tomatoes were one of those things. The other 2 things are like interviews like we're doing now, and then once a month or twice a month we'll do like a food news thing, like if there's crazy food news. But like tomatoes are one of those things that like you start researching it and you're like, tomatoes didn't get to Italy until basically the 1700s. Like
amazing, right?
They created that whole fucking cuisine based around a thing that didn't get there. Right. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So
and one of the okay, go ahead. One of the things that was kind of fun researching too is that my ancestors from the Netherlands created this spice trading company and went over to the parts of the world where Mumtaz's ancestors were living, brought back a bunch of spices, made speculas out of them. I mean, it's just kind of fun to think that, I mean, I know it's probably unlikely, but that one of my ancestors and one of Mumtaz's ancestors met at one point.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
The interview that I did last month was with a chef in New York called Jay Rifle. Dude's been on Bobby Flay's show a couple times or whatever, but he's really cool guy. He's like a food historian. Him and another food writer put out a book called A History of the World in 10 Dinners. And it's interesting because it's sort of the opposite of yours, where his is all based in history. So it's like there's a chapter on the Silk Road. There's a chapter on ancient Greece. There's a chapter on, ancient China. Like everything is old school and like really opulent. Like there's a thing that he makes that's basically a turkey sewn onto a pig. So it's like a pig with turkey legs, and it's, you sew the wings into the back of the pig. So it looks like a chimera kind of thing. But like where his was like, okay, we can look at how food brings us together throughout history. We all share this in common. Yours is sort of like, no, we're still doing it now. And I find that amazing. Like how we're talking about like, oh, everybody has a cutlet. Everyone has, a ground meat that's like wrapped in a thing,
Yep. Everyone has a biscuit or a cookie. Mm-hmm. They're all a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to order his book. I think that's really interesting. I'd love to get some insight on it also.
It's a really it's a really well researched book, and there's a lot of like there's a recipe in there for garum, which is the predecessor to fish sauce. It's a Roman.
Oh, right. Yep.
Yeah. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild book.
It's a fermented sauce, right?
Yeah.
Is it a fermented fish? Yeah.
Which, talking to him, I didn't realize you can actually just buy garum now. Like people are selling, they're bottling it and selling it, and I was like, of course they are. Like there's some dude probably next to you, Mumtaz, in like a borough of like Brooklyn who's like just making it in his basement, right, and then selling it for $30 a bottle.
Absolutely.
Right?
Of course. Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And I really can't express how much fun I've had looking through this book. And I'm actually going to use this to cook with.
Oh,
and
yeah. That's what it's for.
I'm excited to do it. Like I said, everything's really well written. Everything's like easy to follow. I mean, even like one of the things that I always look at when I'm looking at cookbooks is what would my mother think when she looks at it, right? Because I'm a food professional. I can do this in my sleep. My mother is not the greatest cook in the world,
Got it.
So what would she think if she looked at some of these? I don't think she'd have a problem with a lot of this stuff. Like, even though she's never made it or it's outside of her comfort zone, if she wanted to try it, I think these are written really well. And that's a credit to both you guys. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if she does try anything, you must let us know.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah. Take a photo of the stuff you make too. I want to see.
I will.
Yeah.
And okay, so we'll talk about your Instagram, but can I tag you guys if I actually did like?
Oh, please
do. You still roll your
Please.
Instagram? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, we would love that.
Yeah.
All right. So before I let you guys go, I've got bad news. You're both going to die tomorrow. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. You can go horribly if you want, which I don't know why you would want to, or you can just, you just go. Anyway, you can eat whatever you want, as much or as little, as many drinks, as many desserts, whatever you want. What is your sort of, I'm going to go tomorrow meal?
Oh, I'm going for the Mexican table. I'm going for that Mexican table.
Yeah, that's you.
Pretty much the whole thing.
It doesn't have to be from the book. It doesn't have to be from the book.
Okay. Would have to be some Mexican of some sort for me.
Okay. Yeah, like I'm lucky enough to live in a section of Baltimore where I am just surrounded by this, and still I'm like, oh yeah, I'm cooking some of this stuff out here. Yeah, it's
really quite amazing.
I don't say no to queso.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I would say that it would be something very simple but very nostalgic, which is what we call in Urdu dal chawal, which is chawal is literally boiled basmati rice, and dal is a stew, just a lentil stew, which is just a very simple stew that's simmered with turmeric and red chili, and then it's given a tempering with garlic and curry leaves and just cumin, and it's just so comforting. I mean, I've just made some today too. Like, it's something I never get sick of, and it's something I crave all the time. So if I was to die tomorrow, I definitely would need to have that before I went.
That's awesome. Any drinks, any desserts? Laura?
Well, I guess I could have a margarita with that.
Nice.
That Mexican table, and desserts.
I guess you got to go, if you're on the topic, you got to go churros then, right?
Churros, or even just a classic American chocolate chip cookie. Going back
that's
the nostalgia that like a warm right out of the oven.
Yeah.
Going back to my nostalgia, that's what I grew up eating for my sweets.
I think I would be okay with, again, we go back to our roots when these emotional and traumatic things happen. So I would say a cup of chai. I'm not a huge dessert person, so it would be chai and then the dal chawal.
Nice. Well, Thank you both for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Before we get out of here, tell everyone where they can find you guys at on social media or wherever.
So our social media is at Spice and Sugar Table. And we also have a website called spiceandsugartable.com. And so you can find us there. And we love to get messages from people, and so we really want to, if anyone buys the book, it would be great if we would love to get photos of them holding the book. We'd love to get any reviews, even if you haven't bought it from Amazon. We just love to hear people's stories about the recipes, and most importantly, the gatherings that kind of come about from these recipes.
Yes, tag us. We will share it in our stories, and we will just be so thrilled if you make anything or cook anything from this book.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us, and for spending so much time looking at the book and studying it. It's just, we really appreciate your time.
I'm a sucker for a good cookbook. I'm actually in the middle, like this summer, me and my other podcast partner, when she comes on, we're in the middle of our summer of cookbooks. So we've done 2 parts of our favorite cookbooks. We're going to do part 3, and then part 4 will be like the cookbooks that have disappointed us the most. Looking at you, Thomas Keller.
We hope not to be in that section.
No. I'm actually going to bring up your book next week. So, but yeah,
we will tune in. But it was really, actually, as Laura said, such a pleasure to talk to you. And it's lovely to, when people actually go through the book and they know about it and they feel for it as much as, coming from a place where we created it with a lot of love. And it was just fun talking to you. You're cool and you're chill, and it was super easy, and we weren't stressed. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad you guys had a good time, because I know this stuff can be like,
it's a little
kind
bit
of weird.
Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. All right.
And thank you for listening to the Rude Cooking School podcast. I really appreciate everyone that listens. I don't pay for advertising, so word of mouth is how we get out there. And I really appreciate when people do that. So please share with your friends and family and your pets and whoever that likes food about this. And I see you, Sweden, big bump in Sweden lately. Weird. I don't know why, but hey, let's go with it. We have a Facebook group. Please add yourself to that. It's the only place in all of Facebook that is even worth being on, because it's, a few thousand people that are really fun and stupid and have a really good time and share recipes and actually answer each other's questions. And they're really nice. So do that. I'm on Instagram and all that other stuff at Rude Cooking School. So thank you, everyone, for the Rude Cooking School podcast. I'm your host, John Hauser III. Don't yuck my yum. And you ladies are
Laura Klynstra.
and Mumtaz Mustafa.
Talking over each other.
But
yeah, there you go. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. And ladies, thank you so much. It was so much fun. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.